People had fun on the river, and sometimes they had fun when the river was frozen. In the 1890s, the river froze over solid for 17 days, and people were enjoying, instead of having ferry boats, we had to have sleigh rides to go back and forth. But a couple of enterprising young tavern owners over in Indiana decided to put something called the North Pole Exchange, and they sold beer and hot sausages out in the middle of the river. One night they put down a wooden floor and Japanese lanterns, and they put an orchestra on the floor, and they had about 300 people dancing and skating. And there are 2 photographs existing of it. So U of L Photo Archives had this, and I was thrilled to death to find this. Well, people had fun, and these young banker daredevils, maybe some of your early members here, went on an excursion to take a boat over the falls of the Ohio. It was pretty well controlled by then, but this was an idea of, and of course this is a casual day of dressing up in those days. In 1935, our great flood mayor Neville Miller had a WPA project that dug by hand, by pick and shovel, the municipal harbor opposite Towhead Island, and the whole purpose was to provide river access to non-wealthy people, to people who wanted to come down and go fishing or to rent a boat for a day. And they hired 300 men with pick and shovel to do this. There still is a municipal harbor there. Some of you might remember this is a scene in the 50s we used to see quite a bit. There used to be hydroplane racing down on the river right downtown. And if you look in the back, you see the famous LG&E Gateway to the South sign. That today is the Yum Center, is directly right there at the end of the 2nd Street Bridge. But I always thought that an aquarium might fit there better, but we've always enjoyed our river. And we are possessive about our river, and it means a great deal to a great number of people. And I think many of us will remember nice afternoons spent down on the river, on it or in it. But it's also always been a place of work and always reflected its time. The use of the river reflected what the priority of that particular time was. This is a scene with the LG&E waterfront. You had your utility, your power plant utilities adjacent to the river, on the river edge, to serve the coal, to bring in the coal barges to burn. And we all remember that, progress was a lot of smoke in the air. You also see the LG&E plant, but the river, especially right downtown, was so precious, the river's edge, that we lost sight of it being anything but an industrial area. 1928 and 29, a real change in this community, a real change in America. The 2nd Street Bridge, called the Municipal Bridge, the George Rogers Clark Memorial Bridge today, was built. It was the first vehicular bridge at a time when we'd finally reached the point where, up until this point, railroad trains and interurbans crossed the river, but not individuals unless you went on the ferry. This really did change things. Now, the day that they dedicated this bridge, it was a remarkable day in local history, but also in American history. They had a free opening. It was a toll bridge. It cost $5 million to build. It was very controversial. How dare you build a bridge by tolls? They put it up in a year and a half, and they had a huge party. They had a party, and it had an air show and musical concerts, and they put barges out in the river shooting off fireworks. And people really had fun. 100,000 people showed up. This was the day after the stock market crashed in 1929. We didn't quite get the message and had a hell of a party. This is what many of you will remember. This is the old L&N rail station down on the river's edge. The highest priority was, this was a place where, in the 1920s especially, the towboat industry really got firmly established. And so places like Belknap Hardware needed massive amounts of transportation, and they put in the rail service as well as all the other things they needed, the warehouses and the factories. This was a visionary view of Louisville that actually, unfortunately, it was commissioned in 1929 and not released till 1931 when the crash was, the Depression was pretty well established. This was designed by Harlan Bartholomew and Associates, the first real urban planners in America. And this is a plan for downtown waterfront. And this is the one that, there have been so many plans. There are stacks of plans for the waterfront. I mean, between 1975 and 1985, there were 11 major studies done. But this was the one that really kind of hung on and had some legs. They had envisioned an area of a public park with parking below it, a belvedere that was 6 blocks long. And it would accommodate 4,000 vehicles. There were not 4,000 parking places in all of Louisville, but they were looking forward to seeing something entirely new. The building here on one side, and its matching building, one was to be the new City Hall, and the other was to be the county courthouse. And it looks like Batman should be up on the top of all of them. But they envisioned let me go back. They envisioned an elevated interstate highway going right across exactly where I-64 is today, and beneath it a subterranean tunnel for trains. And there were going to be fountains and all sorts of things. Every subsequent downtown plan kept this idea of the parking garage, the Belvedere concept. It just got smaller and smaller and smaller. But instead of 6 blocks, it became really 1 city block. But it has been an important element, and it's been almost an article of faith since we started urban planning. Needless to say, in 1931, this didn't get built. But in 1937, this city faced a crisis that has never been faced before or since. We've always had floods. We're on a floodplain. And roughly every 50 years we have a major flood. But in 1937, 76 years ago this week, the rains started, and eventually the entire 200,000 people in Louisville were evacuated from their homes for 3.5 weeks. It was the most impact of the greatest natural disaster in American history. The entire Ohio Valley was under flood at the same time. That's never happened. From Pittsburgh to Carroll, Illinois, everything set a record flood. It's still the record for virtually everyone. So the great challenge was not where the river's edge was. The river's edge was in your first floor, probably. But the response to this community made to the great flood was truly heroic, and many, many people consider that modern Louisville started after the flood. It was sort of to us what the fire in Chicago was, that we had a chance to restart and made many, many decisions based on that. That is the second, that's right at, the Yum Center would be right there. We've had all sort of at the end of the waterfront area. Some of you might remember, I vaguely remember this. In the 50s, Ford Motors used the 4th Street Wharf to send these huge shipments of Fords up to Cincinnati and unload it at Cincinnati, and they'd fill them up full of Chevys they made there and send those down here. But you can see the parking lot area was all with Fords. Well, as I said, every generation has found their use for the waterfront. And for many, many years, this was it for us. It was as heavy industry, as polluting industry, as destructive in industries as you can possibly come up with. And people began to say, is this the best possible use? This is the first impression. If you're coming across from Indiana, from Indiana Oak, this is your first impression of Kentucky. Is this the very best we can do? Is this the best way to use this incredible asset? And a number of people said no. On top of that, they began to build even more and more elaborate interstate highways, all coming together where the bridges are, thus, again, cutting us off from our river's edge. And there was this growing frustration, why can't we get to the river? This photograph taken a few years back, that's the skyline of Louisville you're looking at. This is one of the few buildings sticking up above the air. And the brand new Belle of Louisville, brand new to Louisville at least, was coming in. Those two elements, the development of the Galt House complex by Al Schneider and the development of the Belle of Louisville began to redirect people's ideas. Wait a minute, there is a reason to go back to the river's edge. And those two things were very, very important. But we've always loved coming down to the river. This was a scene in the 1900 newspaper when the Confederate veterans came and 100,000 people showed up and shot off fireworks down at the river's edge, which seems to have taken hold. It is an amazing natural amphitheater and one place that can handle this kind of massive amount of people and a place where we all want to come together. It is best and more easily done in Louisville at our river's edge. But